उदयन्नस्तं च यन् असौ तस्यार्थ यत् क्षणो नीत उत्तमश्लोकवार्तया आयुः dif- dif- okay. Karati decreases, right? Certainly. Umsham of the people. Udyan rising. Astam setting. Cha also. Yan moving. Asau the sun. Tasya of one who glorifies the utilized. Uttama Shloka, the all good personality of Godhead. Vartaya in the topics of both by rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of all good personality of God. This is a very intriguing and heavy section of the Srimad Bhagavatam. How many of you found it heavy? What good are your hands if your legs are not traveling to a holy place? You're basically useless. And you're like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. I mean, it appears that the Bhagavatam is talking down at us. Like you guys are useless unless you're doing this. And it took me a lot of time to digest this particular section of the Bhagavatam. How many of us here know why the Bhagavatam calls certain people hogs, dogs, camels, and asses? You know? Yes, bro.
Because when we're not living according to the Vedic principles, we're really existing in animal life.
It's very true. If you think about it, you know what donkeys do? They work all day. They stand in the middle of grass, but they think that unless I bear the burden on my back and walk a very long distance, nobody will give. You know this? That's what donkeys do. There is grass all over. They will ignore it. They will think I have to work. There is this washerman, put the laundry on my back and walk a long distance, and then someone will give me some food. There is also a metaphor with donkeys where you hang a carrot in front. And have you heard of this thing? A carrot in the front, stick at the back. So sometimes they will hang a carrot in front of a donkey. And the donkey will think, if I just move a little further, just a little bit, I will get this carrot. And, in a way, that is what our careers are like. Think about it. When we are very little, then some kids who are a little older to us, they are starting going to school. We are sitting at home, so they must be special. And we ignore that free time we have. No, we want to go to school. How many of you, when you were 3 or 4, saw kids that were 5 getting into kindergarten? I want to be like that. I want to be like that. So when you're in kindergarten, they say first grade. First grade is exciting. And by the time you get to first grade, you realize you just came and went. And in this way, elementary school. And then it says if you finish elementary school, middle school is going to be more exciting. Then you finish middle school. Then high school is very exciting. You finish high school. When you're in high school, they glamorize college. There are so many movies about so much fun happening in college. And some of us who've been at least seen a little bit of college, we're in a campus town. It's fake. They show you something, they give you something else. There's a difference between what in India they call showroom versus go down. In the showroom, they will have the nicest thing, the best spotlight. By the time you get it, the thing is not shiny anymore. And you go to college and you get out of college and you thought it's going to be glamorous and you're going to be, like you walk that walk and you've conquered the world. But does, then, you're standing with an application form for a job which you don't get. And, right? So that's like the donkey's carrot. One more step and you're going to make it. And when you're in college, they said, you got to have a job. When you have a job, save for retirement, say, get married, have kids. Once you have that, retirement comes. It says, all the fun they promised, they have been promising since I was a baby. False promise. That is donkey. Donkey means I'm chasing the carrot. And if I don't chase the carrot, somebody will hit me with a stick. And out of fear and out of false hope, we keep walking. That is why Bhagavatam says sometimes we are like a donkey. Right? Why camels? Do you know why camels? Yes, Gopiji Vanaprabhu.
It's because camels enjoy tasting their own blood.
Camels enjoy tasting their own blood. You see, in the desert, you don't have too many kinds of plants. It's mostly cactuses. And camels eat cactuses. If you eat cactuses, your mouth is going to bleed. Except camels think it's like tomato sauce. They're drinking their own blood, but they really enjoy it. In this world, think about it. Every time we have a job, we are giving moments of our life in exchange of certain numbers that is secured by an organization called a bank. Essentially, that's what it is, right? And then you can take those numbers and play around, put it in mutual funds and this and that. But at the end of the day, what are those points? It is basically moments of your life where you have toiled hard to turn your own blood into money. What are we doing? We're enjoying that money. Aren't we like camels? Dang. So, we think that if I get this carrot, I'll be happy. And when you get that carrot, you're like drinking your own blood. Huh? And then what about dogs? Dogs are very territorial. If you've seen dogs around in this neighborhood, they will go and then pee at every tree corner. Why? This is my zone. If you come here, you'll need a visa. That's what dogs do. And in India, they say dogs are such elevated creatures that the first kind of plant they like pissing on is the tulsi plant. They have no discrimination. They have no discrimination. It's like, this is my land and this is my owner. As long as I have a collar on my neck, I'll keep barking. People will run away. They are scared of me. I am the big brother. I'm the big boss. And so the moment we have a certain headway, we have a certain control over a territory or some people, that dog mentality kicks in. And Srila Prabhupada says that I am traveling around the world. Everywhere I'm going, I'm standing in line for a visa. Right? They are stopping me everywhere. But this is dog civilization. Why? Because they have marked their territory. I will not let you inside my territory. Right? That's like dogs. And the hogs are the best because they are in Vrindavan. Have you ever been to Vrindavan? Anybody here? Sometimes there are hogs everywhere. And they have muck, and this is 18 plus audience, so I'll just say they have muck and shit on their body. And they love it. And they run through the streets, spreading it everywhere. They don't care. They think when they're in the drain, they are the happiest. It's so, soft and mushy. The sense of smell that humans have when they come across stench doesn't exist in hogs. They're not able to discriminate between what is pleasurable and what is not pleasurable. Right? The other thing about hogs is that, sometimes children will grow up and have sex with their own mother. They have no discrimination. Right? And otherwise, they're very intelligent creatures. But then, in certain respects, they have no discrimination. So once you have your carrot, because at the end of the day, no matter how much you chase your carrot, once you've done your job, somebody will put that carrot in your mouth, except you've worked too hard for something that's too trivial. And you're tasting your blood. I'm not saying you, but generally. You're claiming your territory to enjoy what? Mark? That's why the Bhagavatam says, if we do not take shelter unto Krishna, we are living a life where we are enjoying our own blood. We are claiming territory that is not ours. We are chasing a dream that is not going to leave us fulfilled. And for an enjoyment, that's not worth it. This is the meaning of hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is your friend. And friends are able to say things without reservation. Isn't it? That's why Srimad Bhagavatam will not cut corners. It will just say things on your face like a good friend. And the Sanskrit word for literature is Sahitya. Sahitya means companionship, friendship. So literature means friend. Spiritual literatures are your friends. They will say things to you in a way nobody else will. They will not cut corners. They will give you the reality of the situation as it is. If you do not like it, well, what to do? At least Shastra has fulfilled its responsibility as a friend. Right? And while we are pursuing everything in life, there is one thing that we are missing. And if I may, you know, for many years, I was a professor of world's religions at Grand Valley State University in Michigan. It was a very interesting job. You were supposed to teach the world's religions without being religious. If you were religious, then you would be biased. You cannot teach religion. Okay. But kids are always curious. All of my students used to come and ask me all the time, so what do you believe in? And I would say, I'm not supposed to say what I believe in. So I would say Mother Nature, Father Time. Just think about it, Krishna says, I am time, Mrityu Sarvarasham, and nature is mother in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's the closest I could get. Mother Nature, Father Time. Is this clear so far? Space and we are sitting in space. Krishna house is space. You exist in space. We are spending this time together. That clock has stopped, by the way. That means I can go on. Right? So space and time. Misery in the material world starts because we are separated from things we want by space and time. Except when we get what we want, and this is my paraphrasing of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, more tears are spilled over answered prayers than unanswered ones. Think about it. More tears are spilled over answered prayers than unanswered ones. When we want something, we desperately want it. Krishna, give it to me. Without this, I cannot sleep. Without this, I cannot eat. Without this, this cannot happen. That cannot happen. Once you get it, it comes with some tomato sauce, and it doesn't feel as nice as when we thought we will get it. Right? There is always a gap, and the English poet T.S. Eliot once said, between the desire and its fulfillment, there is a gap. Between the intention and the action, there is always a gap. And this gap is the nature of the material world. Right? And that gap is, this is the gap. While we exist in time, we forget about time. And here is a story. Who's ready for a Mahabharata story? So one day, the Pandavas in exile were going through a forest, and they had walked a long distance. They had run out of drinking water. If you're walking on a trek and you don't have drinking water, it gets miserable after some time. And so all the brothers and everybody was so tired, they just sat down and said, we can't do this anymore. Can someone just go a little more? I know that there is a, like a clean pond from where you can drink. Can somebody please go and get some water? And, in a family, usually the smallest ones have to take orders from everybody above them, right? And so first, the two young brothers, Nakula and Sahadeva, went to fetch water. And while they were about to get water, they heard a voice, disembodied voice saying, hey, before you drink water, answer my questions. So who are you? Yama. Yama means the Lord of Death. Yama also means the great leveler. Right? They did not listen to Yama. They wanted to drink. He said, if you drink, you will die. He said, I don't care. At least I'll die with the drink. So they drank and they died. And the others who were waiting for these brothers to come back did not come, like what happened to them? They were thirsty and they were impatient. So one by one, all the brothers went, Nakula, Sahadeva, Arjuna, Bhima, and they all did not listen to Yama and they died. And at last Yudhishthira came. And Yudhishthir Maharaj was asked, if you don't answer my questions and drink this water, you will die. And he saw his dead brothers dead. And he was so thirsty, he said, no, I must drink. He said, no, wait. And Yama starts asking him questions, many, many questions. Like he asks, what's the best form of education? He said, traveling. And then one of the questions he asked is, what is the most amazing thing on planet Earth? Can you guess what it is? Huh? What? Cows, amazing thing? Yeah, okay. But that was the answer in that passage. Yeah.
Most amazing thing on planet Earth is that everyone will die and everyone knows that they are going to die, but yet we always forget.
Ah, we read in the newspapers, these many people dead. You know, Hamas attacked Israeli concert and Israel bombed back Palestinian territory. There is Ukraine war going on and people are dying on both sides. Train derails, mass shootings happen. We know these are happening to real people like us in this world. We hear about the death of other people every single day. We know that we too must face that moment in our lives, but we live our lives as if that doesn't exist. This is the most amazing thing on planet Earth. We live in denial, right? And this is what this verse is saying, that every moment you're living, think about it. You don't know when your end is going to come. But every moment that you're living as if you're not going to die. And number two, you are living as if it doesn't matter to begin with. We all are, me included. And so this is what the Bhagavatam as a friend is saying, that, hey, wake up. This is not, if you just look around you, consider yourself very fortunate that you have come to the level of being able to even hear the Bhagavatam. There are so many animals and insects, you can go and read the Bhagavatam to beetles on the street. It won't make a difference. Animals don't understand this. And among humans, how many people know that this exists? So if you have come to the stage where you have, at least a hint of getting out of this cycle, that you're stuck, consider yourself fortunate. Human birth is very rare, right? And if after getting human birth, we do not engage in the fullest potential of what it really kind of means to be human, what exactly are we doing? What is the use of hands if it doesn't serve? And I wanted to kind of, you have to hold me accountable with time. We have, I just wanted to share 3 personal realizations on this section of the Bhagavatam, and then hear your realizations on these topics. You know, I've had many close shaves where, you know what a close shave is? You really kind of look at the mirror and shave. No, I heard from my mother that moments after I was born, I was clinically dead. And they had to put me through all these machines to get me alive. So I don't know how I reached 40. I was supposed to conk off. And sometimes I wonder if that would have been a nicer option, but reincarnation makes things complicated. But there were 2 other incidents where I almost, it's like nick of time. I escaped with my life. One time I was literally saved. And every morning we sing that, Sri Guru saves us. In my life, I actually saw that happen. I was serving my spiritual master, Srila Krishna Maharaj, for some time. And he was very close to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada used to keep him and travel with him. And Gurudev told us that in his last days, Srila Prabhupada had a bell and he wanted Tamal at a moment's notice. So Gurudev would sleep under Prabhupada's bed. Because Prabhupada was sometimes so sick, he would just need attention right away. Just ring the bell and Gurudev was ready, so there was no time wasted between call and response. And in the last few days of his life, he started what has now become Kirtan Mela. These kind of things were not there in ISKCON. Only Ayendra Prabhu was sitting and singing in Vrindavan. And I had the good fortune of sitting with him for a few occasions. Those kirtans were powerful. And you probably have some audio cassettes. No, you don't know how to use cassettes. Sorry, it's like, but yeah, MP3s. And Tamakrishna Maharaj had this idea that, if you're a spiritual movement just focused on projects, sooner or later, we will become disenchanted with the process of Krishna consciousness. It is very important to immerse ourselves in spiritual activity. So he said, I have come to Mayapur for GBC meetings, but my mornings will be spent studying Rupa Goswami, afternoons spent with devotees in the Ganga, and evenings spent doing kirtan. In the middle, we can get some work done. And so we were just following him around and going through the schedule. And then on the last day, I was supposed to travel back with him to Calcutta, see him off. And then he called me the night before when he was packing and said, Krishna Abhishek, I want you to go to Calcutta now. And it's like, the road back to Calcutta is quite dangerous. So I was afraid that, nowadays it's safe, but back 20 years, sometimes there were highway robbers. And they would stop you in the middle of the night. They would take everything, including your clothes, and leave you on the side of the road to be discovered the next morning. So I didn't want to take the risk. And he said, no, just go, nothing will happen. So I took it and went. And next morning, I found out that the driver had fallen asleep on the wheel when he was driving back. The car had crashed. Tamakrishna Maharaj had passed away. And there was a girl who was sitting right where I was supposed to sit. We were planning how we would travel back. And she died that morning too. And it was her birthday. Her name was Vrindavaneshwari Devi, wife of, I think, the Tamil president of Melbourne, Kalasambara Prabhu. And, it was, when I went back to Gurudev's room and I was going through all of his belongings, I saw that he had written a note for her. He had given her a gift called Servant of the Servant. It's a book that he had written. And he said, "My dear Vrindavaneshwari, may you find shelter at the lotus feet of Goswamis on the banks of Radhakund as quickly as possible." He had written that 5 a.m. in the morning on her birthday. And by, in the next 2-3 hours, she was gone. And I was supposed to be there. And, it dawned on me that this thing that we call life, it can go any moment. There is no guarantee whatsoever. And I also felt that day that for some reason, my life was spared. My guru literally saved me that way. And then again in 2017, it was actually 6th November. So exact, this time, 6 years back, I came out of the house and was driving somewhere. And in Michigan, you have something called black ice. You know what black ice is? So it rained a lot. The temperature dropped. The water froze on the road. I was coming home. I saw a possum crossing the road, and I tried to slow down a little bit. But, when you're driving on black ice, there's no slowing down. So before I knew it, the car skid, hit the curb, turned around, hit a tree. The police later came at the accident zone and said that you hit the tree at almost 70 miles an hour, right? So my head hit the bar. I passed out. I didn't have sense. I was coming in and out of consciousness. My life flashed in front of my eyes. And I thought, okay, this is it. And the car was beginning to fill with smoke, and I couldn't come out, and the doors got locked. The doors were damaged. And this big bone had hit the ball socket, so my right leg wasn't working. My arm was on the steering. I couldn't feel my arm. So it was a very painful and interesting experience. Somehow I kicked the car door open with my left leg, stumbled on the road. Somebody came and started asking me questions. Who's the president of the United States? Closed my eyes. I didn't know what was going on. It was like all very bizarre. It had all changed in a moment's notice. It's just like, fine person driving in a car, everything is fine. This possum across the road, some karmic reaction, I tell you, right? And after, I don't want to get into gory details, but after things were sorted a little bit, this is what I found out. And this is why I'm still Krishna conscious, or at least I try to be. The car hit a tree outside a paramedic's home. I didn't have to wait for 911 or anything. This is how Krishna protects you. I hit a tree at 70 miles an hour. What were the chances? Like, what were the chances Ramakrishna Maharaj wouldn't tell me that, go away? I used to drive with him. But night before he tells me go. What were the chances? He was like, what are the chances? So this paramedic comes out, takes care of me, and the police come and go to the doctor and everything else. When I'm mobile again and I'm walking, I go back to this person's house to say a thank you. And he just, he immediately responded. And he said, I actually planted that tree when I was 3 years old. And that tree saved my house because the car was, would have got straight inside his house if it wasn't for the tree. So Krishna somehow had him plant that tree. And after that accident, I realized there are no accidents. There are just ways things work. We're not prepared for it. That's why it looks like an accident. But think about it. First, There is something mysterious happening in the universe that we have not the slightest inkling about. But what were the chances that we would be here safe and protected? We could have been in Gaza, waiting for bombs. No, we're here. And for those who are there, I have my sincere and deepest prayers. But what were the chances? Right? So the conclusion is time is going to take away everything. There is no way we can continue forever in time. But within the time that we experience, God takes us through certain situations for us to realize that, hey, there is somebody, there is some invisible hand that's actually, guiding the path of every living being. We just don't see it because it's invisible. But if we think about it, it becomes very apparent that this thing is real, right? And as humans, if we do not come to the stage where we are actually focused on the real deal, then we are living life whimsically, like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. And I've done that long enough to realize that, oh, this stuff is real. But I want to thank you and stop here today and open the floor up for comments, ideas, suggestions, questions. Yes, Gopi.
I have two thoughts. They're connected. The first thought is that if we go by this definition of real friendship that you shared in the class, then we have to be honest that there's really no friends out there in today's society. You have some people that kind of, I guess you could call them motivational speakers, and they encourage you in some way, but it's usually just to work harder at that job which just brings you stool at the end of the day, or maybe to become fit or do exercise or something like that. But in the real sense of what's actually good for us, this global society just does not know. So it's not that no one is trying to be our friend, but no one knows how to be a real friend to each other.
That is very true.
And then the second connected point is that therefore, because of this, we're also not always ready for when someone wants to be our real friend or some source of knowledge wants to be our real friend. I remember my mother when I first shared some Prabhupada's books with her. She read it. And I don't know exactly what she said, but she said something like, "This gentleman is too harsh. He's just, he's so." What did she say? Something about he really hates the Western civilization or something like that. Prabhupada cuts to the core and really makes us question everything that we're doing. But there's can be this false ego response.
No, thank you. I have two thoughts in response to your two thoughts. On the second point, I think it was quite normal in that generation because they had seen the First and Second World Wars and see the reality of life to cut straight to the point, not beat around the bush. And one time, one reporter asked Mahatma Gandhi, "What do you think about Western civilization?" And he responded, "I think it's a great idea." Drum roll. So it wasn't just Prabhupada, there were others. And number two is my realization on this, on the first point you made, is that we all have our love languages. And there is some research on this as well, that words of affirmation, physical touch, then giving gifts, and so on and so forth. I think there's even a book on that. And what happens is when we give feedback or receive feedback, but it is not given or received in a love language, it doesn't really translate. Right? That's been my experience because I've received feedback and I've taken that as criticism, and the heart is not open, exactly as you said. And the reason is later on I reflect that this person said this thing to me, maybe angrily, but there was a point. There is something there for me to think about and improve on, except it wasn't said in a format that I understood. So we have different digestive capacities, and a real friend understands that. And to be honest, in this whole world, the closest that comes to spiritual love is the love between a baby and the mother. Except for that, most kinds of love will have to be warped reflections of original races. And so we don't know how to be friends. You're right. And when we try to become friends, we mess it up. Because the ability to be a real friend is a power that the Paramatma has. Our Shastras say that our soul is like a bird and the Paramatma is like another bird sitting next to it like a friend. And so depending on what the Jivatma bird wants, the Paramatma bird gives it. And so if that be true, then the unmediated experience of reality is the language of God. Right now, whatever we are experiencing, that is how God is talking to us as a friend. So when we, even if we don't know what God is, even if we don't know anything, we take a class, we fail to understand what the message is. But thank you for those two very powerful realizations, Stina and then Prabhu. Yeah.
Thank you very much for class, Prabhu. I have a slightly different interpretation that I wanted to offer to see what
Absolutely.
you think. So there's this amazing movie called La Vita è Bella, Life is Beautiful, and won many awards some years ago.
Antonio Benigni, right?
Yes. So going back to World War II, right? So the story is that a Jewish father and his young son are brought into a concentration camp, and concentration camps, obviously we know how horrific they were, but the young son did not end up having trauma or having a bad memory of the concentration camp, because his father, even in the midst of this awful, horrible experience, took great pains to make it seem like a game to his child, to make it seem like, oh, we're in this place, and and everything's fun and everything's fine. And even at the very end, when the father is caught by the guardsmen and is being marched to a wall where he's going to be shot and killed, and the father is, he feels this tension. He's like, oh, I'm about to die, but he sees his child watching him, and so he puts on a smile, and he starts walking like, like a clown, and so that his son does not know that something bad is going to happen to him. So the father, that this is just this amazing thing that the father is able to do. And so I would say my interpretation of these verses and of the hogs, dogs, camels, and asses thing is that we as humans, as opposed to the animals, we have a choice. We have a choice of how to see things and how to portray things to others. Whereas the animals, they do not. They do not have that power of imagination. They do not have that power to say, oh, even though I'm in a really difficult situation right now, I can imagine it as being something else. And so these verses, when it's about, oh, if you don't use your legs to travel to the temple, then they're just made of wood. I think of the father, dancing his way to death. That we are in the situation in the material world where you can see it as suffering, and you can see it as a prison house or this terrible thing. But because we are humans, we can also dance through it, and we can make our legs like real legs instead of like the tree trunks of, oh, I'm about to die. So that is how I see it.
That's totally legit and wonderful. Yes. Great movie.
Just a brief comment. I was thinking about this whole idea, actually two brief comments. The idea of friendship and how we're called in the Angas of Bhakti to befriend the Lord. And I think of that as, in high school I had and junior high, I had two very close friends. We did everything together all the time. And the Srimad Bhagavatam being a literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord, we can always spend time with our friend. And the other thing about a friend is that someone who truly loves us is willing to say the things that we need to hear and not flatter.
Very true, very true. Any other points, comments? How are we doing with time?
I was just thinking that, yes, like the Srimad Bhagavatam is a true friend, and yes, some people won't be able to like fully receive the way that maybe Prabhupada's purports are written. And so this is why we have gurus and people that are able to take this supreme truth spoken by a friend and speak it in our love language or in the way that we need to hear. And they are also a true friend. Like, even though maybe it seems like sometimes they have to sugarcoat a little bit, but it's not really that. It's just they're kind of boiling it to the essence and then giving it to you in a way that you can receive. So that's also important for us to do with one another, because if a true friend will know that if I see somebody is getting triggered by the truth spoken in this way, then I'm going to speak the truth in another way that they can receive with love.
I agree. And on your point, Krishna and Plato says the same thing, that when you want to say speak the truth, sometimes we use the truth as a weapon, and we get great pleasure when we see the other person hurt, but we feel self-righteous because we have used the truth to hurt somebody. And so Krishna says that speech should be satyam, hitam, and priyam. Satyam means, yes, speak the truth, but first think, how is this going to benefit the other person? And then sweeten a sweet way. And Plato says the same thing, that speech must be true, beneficial, and pleasant. And because, I asked Radhanath Maharaj one time, why is Srila Prabhupada always calling people rascal and he's angry and this, that? Like, people expect spiritual teachers to be like floating on the clouds, peaceful, like, ah. And there comes Srila Prabhupada, God's blessing. Why is this? And you said the thing is, when people are rough in the material world, they're usually doing it out of pain and aggression. When Srila Prabhupada is calling somebody a rascal, he's actually doing it out of compassion. Prabhupada wants that person's best. He has that person's best in mind, and he's doing it in an exasperated way. When we do it in a revengeful way. That's the difference. Yes. Yes. Right. And so, sometimes, and we've had friends who've told us the truth on our face. We've had that in our lives. And sometimes when that happens, it feels miserable. But if we give it enough time, then we see the, the good intentions, and we are okay. Yes,
Balance is true also, that if you only say things to someone, if it is, they can receive it smoothly. Prabhupada would often speak the truth, even if it was unpalatable to the person, because it needed to be said. Yeah, of course, he had the purity, but there is a balance between the two. It's that sometimes the truth is going to be unpalatable to certain people.
Yeah.
And so. I didn't.
No, I'm not arguing. I'm just presenting another perspective, not an argument at all. I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I'm just like saying that for us, we should also know that like if we speak the truth and we don't have any false ego there and we don't have any like malefic intentions, then that's fine. But we have to be very careful that when we speak the truth, it's not coupled with some like judgment or some. Otherwise, it will just hurt. Yeah.
That's a very important point. Are we the right person to give that feedback? All right. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to come back to Krishna House, and we are at the end of a semester. I can't believe time flies, but Ayur Harati Vaipumsa. What to do? Thank you so